Yesterday, we were on, we got to Perik Mem Aleph, Pasuk Mem Aleph, 4141, which was page 228. Now, one of the things Paro is impressed about here, one of the reasons Paro is willing to appoint Yosef, is when he said let's go back to Pasuk Lamed Tes for a second, the 3 lines to the top of the page. Vayomer Paro Yosef acharei hodia Elokim oscha ez ein navon v'chacham kamocha. There's nobody as wise as you. And what's interesting is Yosef is 30 years old. It's going to say later on, Yosef is 30 years old. The 3 lines to the bottom says, Yosef ben shloshim shana b'omdo lifnei Paro. So the commentaries point out, why does it say that Yosef is 30 years old? Please close that door, thank you. Why does it tell us his age right at this point? Because in Pirkei Avos it says ben shloshim lekoach, right? Remember, go through the stages of life. At 30 years old, you're at maximum strength. Ben shloshim lekoach ben arboim lebina. At 40 years old, you gain understanding. There's a certain understanding at 40. At 50 years old, ben chamishim la'etza. At 50 years old, you're ready to give advice. But it says ben arboim lebina. Ben arboim, you have a certain understand. You gain a certain understanding. Yet Paro says to Yosef 3 lines from the top, ein novon. Novon is from the word bina. Ein novon v'chacham kamocha. There's nobody with discernment and understanding like you, and he's 30 years old. That means it gives you an indication of where Yosef is holding. Normally, 40 years old, you get a certain insight into life, into wisdom. Yosef already has this at 30 years old, number 1. Number 2, Paro sees a bit of a paradox in Yosef himself. Normally, a person who's got godly wisdom, spiritual wisdom, means he's fully detached from anything in the physical world, anything in the practical physical world. That means the person is completely into the books, into the spirituality, right? And a guy who is well up on the stock market and he knows all about business and hacking and that sort of thing, so that's a guy who generally isn't going to be very, very spiritual. Yet he sees 2 things in Yosef. On the one hand, he's got godly wisdom because he interprets the dreams accurately, which his own wise men didn't. On the other hand, Yosef tells him about what he should do on a practical level, how to organize the land and store up for the what he calls. So Yaakov sees Yosef has got 2 conflicting characteristics in him. This is extremely rare, that a person should be both on a spiritual realm and he should be in the practical world. So then Yaakov comes along and Yaakov says to him, okay, this is the guy that's going to run my country. I see that he's got all the qualifications. My own men don't. They missed on the dreams. No. You said Yaakov does that or Paro? Paro, sorry, did I say Yaakov? I meant Paro. Paro says Yosef has got these qualifications, therefore he chooses Yosef to run the country. Because he's got these, he's both spiritual and yet he's practical. By the way, a Talmid Chacham should be like that. A Talmid Chacham is somebody, the Torah says build a sukkah. Everybody's got to build a sukkah. I mean, how am I supposed to know how to build a sukkah? A guy's learning Gittin all day about Pruzbul. How's he supposed to know how to build a sukkah? The Torah says every man has to go out and build a sukkah. The answer is that the same head that learns Gittin is the same head that figures out how to build a sukkah. Right? You have to, if you've got 2 left hands, then you got a problem. Then you just got to figure out how to get your brother to do it for you. All right, but that's also as far, Yeah. But at the end of the day, a person. That's the ultimate, is that a person becomes, everything in life is thought out. The same Gemara head, the same head that you're using to figure out a Tosos, is the same head that you figure out whether or not you should go into a certain business, and whether or not you should send your kid to a certain school, and whether or not you should buy a certain home. Is this home? I've met Talmidei Chachamim who I haven't, unfortunately, probably because I'm not a Talmid Chacham, but I don't have the ability to sit and focus and think about. I know somebody who had to expand their home, to build onto their house. This couple, the husband is a Talmid Chacham, the wife herself is. They had calculated out to the centimeter what the house, exactly where the rooms are going to be, and they didn't need an interior designer. They just needed a builder to follow. They made the plans, and they worked it out, everything to the centimeter. Where's the toilet going to go, and where's the sink going to go, and where's the shelf going to go, and they work out. I expanded my house. I just brought a guy in and had a guy, just start building. We'll work it out later. I work it out to the centimeter. And sometimes people, you figure out so you should be the same guy in business as you are with the Gemara getting in a Tosos. And you figure out, is this a good move? It's not a good move. They used to say, there were entrance exams to yeshivas. And that's called in Yiddish a farher. You ever hear that? There's a farher. A bacher wants to get into yeshiva. So he's got to meet with the Rosh Yeshiva, he's meet with one of the Rabbi, and they test his level and see his skills. In some high-level yeshivas, they're not going to accept just anybody. They expect certain to be at a certain level. There was one yeshiva I heard about a certain Rosh Yeshiva. When a guy would come in for the farher, he didn't open up a Gemara, not a Baba Kama, and not a Gittin, and not a Ksubas. He didn't open up a Gemara. He started talking to the guy about politics, what's going on in the world with Russia, Ukraine. He just started schmoozing with the bacher. And he heard what the bacher had to say. Because if you know how to learn Baba Kama, then you know how to read a newspaper and understand politics also. It's the same head. And if you're talking about politics like an emotional cucumber, and you just sound like you've been reading too much of People's Magazine, right? So then that means that's how you're going to understand Gemara also. So then you're not qualified. In other words, we're looking at what happened to your head. See, Yosef he's a novon, but he also understands how to run a country, which a lot of people don't. A lot of people are so immersed in the physical world, they're so immersed in the hak, that they've lost sight of, they don't have the Torah head. They don't have the spiritual ass. So Paro takes Yosef. Okay, so then he puts him in charge, and Yosef goes around and he makes what do you call it? And then Paro gives him the name Tzofnas Paneach. 5 lines from the bottom. Now, what's interesting is that he names Yosef Tzofnas Paneach, but Yosef never uses this name. We never find him using this name, Tzofnas Paneach. And it could very well be, what was one of the merits of the Jewish people when they got out of Egypt?
Names.
Huh? They didn't change their names. What was it? What else did they do? They didn't get involved in immorality. One of the reasons that Sarah Imenu, remember back in the story where Sarah Imenu was taken by Paro. Now, I guarantee you that Sarah Imenu, she's with her husband Avram Avinu at that point is very poor. She's taken and she's beautiful. She's taken into the king, and I guarantee you that Paro promised her, listen, you'll be my queen, and you'll live a life of luxury and everything. She has all the offers in the world. It wasn't an easy test. For Sarah Imenu, it was also a test. She's being tested over here. Hey, what do I need to go wandering the world with this guy? With him, he's poor. What do I have to wander the world? I can live in the lap of luxury over here. I could be the queen of Egypt over here. And the guy's enamored with me. Why not? It's a big test. Sarah does not succumb, and Yosef overcomes that same test of immorality. That created the spiritual strength that allowed the Jewish men, when they were in Egypt, that's the one thing they didn't get involved in immorality. And Egypt was the seat of immorality in the world. Remember we spoke about Eretz Canaan was the root of idol worship, and Egypt was the root of immorality. Egypt was the Florida State University of the time, the Arizona State University, right? And where certain universities are known for certain things. Wisconsin, University of Wisconsin, is when they rank. How I know this doesn't matter, but I once read it or heard it. When they rank party schools, so they start the ranking after when University of Wisconsin is automatically number one, because you're in the beer capital of the world, right? So you're automatically number one. Then the ranking, it's ranking in the NBA. When they talked about in the 90s who was the best player, it starts after Jordan. That's a given. Then who's the best player after Jordan? Here is who's the best school after Wisconsin. Egypt is the seat of immorality. Yosef and Sarah Imenu both instill in Egypt the ability for the Jewish people later on to overcome immorality. That's why there was no immorality. There was idol worship. They got caught up in that, but there was no immorality. What else? They didn't change their names. Where does that koach to not change their names come from? Yosef's given an Egyptian name and he never uses it. He never uses the Egyptian name. What's the gematria, by the way, of Tzofnas? What's the gematria of Sofnas Paneach? How does he translate it here? Sofnas Paneach.
It's 620.
He doesn't eat it. He has 620. What is 620?
The mitzvahs plus 7.
The mitzvahs plus the 7 rabbinic laws, right? 613 plus 620. Yosef's got Sofnas Paneach means the one that the hidden things are revealed to him. Sofnas is 620. The entire Torah with the rabbinic laws also. That's Sofnas. That's the name of Yosef. Paro probably didn't intend that. But sometimes, a lot of things in life you don't intend, but somehow you accidentally stumble across it. So Yosef, we're going to see a good one in a second. And then he lets him marry Osnas. He lets him marry Osnas, and then Yosef goes out there, and he's 30 years old. Now, the commentaries say that this is another form of Yosef's greatness. 3 lines from the bottom. V'Yosef ben shloshim shana v'amdo lifnei Paro melech Mitzrayim. Vayetze Yosef mi lifnei Paro v'yavor b'chol eretz Mitzrayim. Yosef goes straight to work. He leaves Paro, and he immediately goes out to the land of Egypt to start working because he's in charge of making sure that they're going to store up for the years of famine. There's no, let's take a vacation, let's go off to the president takes a vacation, goes off to where does he go up into New England or something, has got his vacation. I never understood, the president's taking a vacation. Vacation from what? What do you mean, right now you're not the president? I mean, it's not like he has a regular job description. Or what does he do on a regular day? So he's taking a vacation. What are you vacationing from? Somebody vacationing because you moved from the White House to over there. Now you're on vacation. You still can't say a sentence straight. So what kind of vacation is it? So Yosef goes and he starts this whole financial thing. Okay, and he collects a tremendous amount. And then take a look on page 230. By the way, I saw one of the, who is it who says this? I forgot who says it, but you'll notice the first thing Paro does is he gives him a wife. So I saw that one of the ideas here is that even among presidents of the United States, I think only one president has ever been a bachelor. Only one president has not been married. Why is that? It's an interesting thing. I think who was it? James Buchanan. One president of the United States was not married. If a guy would run as a bachelor, he wouldn't make it. Why not? It's an interesting thing. Why is that? And I read a study on this.
Wives complete us and help us make better decisions.
That's for sure. It could be people know darn well that I can't have this guy making decisions. He needs the wife. I thought we spoke about this yesterday about women with how the wives run it. It's more than that. What?
He wasn't even able to pull off a wife.
They used to say that about certain presidents. If his own wife can't trust him, how could I trust him? That was a tzad hashava by all that. Excuse me 1 second. People see you as a stable person when you're married. For a person that's at the age of marriage, that's a sign of stability. I can't have a president of the United States, a bachelor. Who knows what the guy can't even find his shirt in the morning. How's he going to be a president, right? It's a sign of stability. And the first thing Paro does is get him a wife, number 1. Number 2 is a sign of responsibility. You're going to take responsibility for a whole country? Let's see you take responsibility for your family. You're going to have a wife, you're going to have kids, there's going to be a famine. Let's see how you take care of them also. It's psychologically, that's how people see it. They see you as a completed person once you're married. So the first thing Paro does is give him a wife. Then it says like this. Uliose, 4th line from the top. He gathers up a tremendous amount of produce. And then 4th line, 230, 4th line from the top. Pasuk nun. Uliosef yulad shtei banim b'terem tovo shnas harav. He has 2 sons. According to the Mefarshim, they were actually twins. Asher yolda lo asas bas Potifar koinon. Vayikra Yosef es Shem HaBechor Menashe. He names the first one Menashe. Ki nashani Elokim es kol amoli ves kol beis avi. Now this is a very strange name. The word Menashe means the forgetter. Because Hashem has made me forget all of my troubles and my father's house. Why would Yosef give his son a name that symbolizes the fact that he's forgotten his background, he's forgotten his father's house?
Because his childhood had a lot of pain, a lot of
So he wants to forget it. He wants to forget it.
I would say in this context, he's not forgetting it as much as he's been able to move on from it, transform it.
Okay, so that's very 21st century. That's very no. So yeah, that's why most people nowadays get past it. I got to get out of it. I'm back in my comfort zone now. That's all the expressions we have now, which you're not wrong, by the way. But it's still, why would Yosef want to forget his background? The answer is he gives his son to the contrary. The last thing he wants is to forget. Because I don't want to be in Egypt, and I don't want to raise my kids in Egypt, and I don't want Egyptian culture. I'm from the house of Yaakov. So he calls his son's name Forget, which is a reminder of him, don't forget. That I'm forgetting, that's a bad thing. Every time he sees his son, he says, I'm forgetting. So he's going to remind himself. That this is his safeguard against forgetting is by calling his son forgetting. You know what, I'm starting to forget. That's not a good thing. I'm starting to forget. I don't want to forget. So he named his son Menashe. There are others that say, in Gemara, it's very interesting, the word nosheh. What is a nosheh? Nosheh means a guy who's a creditor. A creditor is a nosheh. Yosef says, my father's house are their creditors. I owe them. I owe my brothers. Why does he owe his brothers? Because of his brothers, that's how he got to here. And Yosef's worried, I'm in a position now of royalty. I'm in charge. There's a very big danger I'm going to forget. Once you get up there, you may start forgetting. That's the danger. So he named his first son Menashe that he shouldn't forget. It'll stop him from forgetting. Because every time he calls him, it'll be a reminder to him you're in danger of forgetting. V'shem hasheni kara Ephraim ki ifrani Elokim be'eretz onyi. For God has caused me to be fruitful in the land of, how does he translate it? In the land of my suffering. That he should always remind himself, Egypt is a land of suffering for him. This is not where he wants to be. No matter what happens, this is not where he wants to be. Okay. Now we get to the drama. So the famine begins, and the famine begins, and in Pasuk Nun Hey. First, there are 7 years of plenty, which the Torah doesn't describe how good that was. And then take a look at Pasuk Nun Hey. This is pretty bizarre. Vatirav kol eretz Mitzrayim. The entire land of Egypt becomes hungry. There's famine. 6 lines from the bottom. Vayitzak ha'amel paro l'lachem. People came to Paro, they're yelling for bread. Vayomer paro l'chol Mitzrayim l'chul Yosef. Go to Yosef asher yomar lachem tasu. Go to Yosef, do whatever he tells you. He didn't say go eat cake. Right? And whether she said that or not, I doubt that's true. Right? What was her? The Marie Antoinette, right? She said that apparently when they were starving, so the legend is that she said when the people were complaining that they're starving, that we have no bread, she said, let them eat cake. I think that's probably some Jewish comedian made that up. I don't think, but that's an urban legend. So take a look at Rashi. He says Paro says to the Egyptians, whatever Yosef tells you to do, you should do. Take a look, very, very strange Rashi. It's a right column, 3 lines from the bottom. Lefi shehaya Yosef omer lahem sheyimolu, because Yosef told them to circumcise. Ukshebo eitzel Paro v'omrim kachu omer lano. They came to Paro and said, whoa, Yosef's telling us to circumcise. Omer lahem, lama lo tzavartem bar. Why didn't you save up produce? He told you that the years of famine are coming. Why didn't you save up? We did, but it rotted. Only what Yosef stored personally stayed fresh. Everything else rotted. Amar lahem, Paro said to them, Im kain, if that's so, kol asher yomar lachem ta'asu. Then you better do whatever he tells you. Hare gozer al atvua v'irkiva. You see, he decreed that it should rot. Ma'im yigzor aleinu v'nau. So what if he decrees we should die? What, he decreed that you got to make a bris milah? You're crying about that he said you have to circumcise? Well, I got news for you. He could decree obviously worse. He obviously decreed that the wheat should rot. His own wheat didn't rot. So he could decree that. You know what? Just do what he tells you to do. What if he decrees that we should die? So then the question becomes, and why did Yosef make this decree? Why did Yosef make this decree? It says he did. The Chazal say he decreed. The Chazal said that he had them all circumcised.
The circumcision.
Why did Yosef make this decree? No, he didn't decree that. I think he did
the
the wheat should rot also, so that so the brothers would be forced to come dafka to him. But why did he decree they should circumcise?
The milah is a sign of this particular relationship with God, and there's the idea that when you see it, you're reminded of Hashem, and so maybe Yosef wanted the people who were like saving up grain and being saved from the famine to be reminded not that Yosef was saving them, or that God forbid they were.
Interesting that they should be reminded who's really doing this. Or it could be interesting. So there are two reasons that the Mefarshim give. Reason number one is that bris milah weakens the drive. It weakens man's drive for sex. The sexual drive is weakened by bris milah. That's why Jews have always been, in this area of life, Jews are under control because we have the bris milah very early on. That's why the kedusha of the Jewish people, nobody in the world could compare to us. The bris milah, what about the Arabs? They do have their issues. Just imagine what they'd be like if they weren't circumcised. Right? This is with circumcision. This is after they've been weakened. Yosef wants two things here. Number one, again, this goal of kind of instilling in Egypt some level of self-control in this area, because they're out of control in this area. Yet instill, which is again going to affect the entire environment, the entire atmosphere in Egypt is affected by this. Number one. Number two, this is a way of Yosef concealing himself. Yosef's brothers are going to be coming down to Egypt. And one of the things they're going to do is they're going to be looking for Yosef. So Yosef has a preemptive strike. What if they walk around, they say, anybody around here, do you know anybody around here circumcised? Well, the guy is running the country, he happens to be circumcised. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, I wonder and then they could investigate and they'll figure out that it's Yosef. This way, if they come down and say, is anyone around here circumcised? Yeah, all of us. All of us. Now, look on ahead to the next week's Parsha when Yosef reveals himself. Turn to Vayigash. A bit of a shock, bit of a jolt. In Vayigash, when Yosef finally reveals himself. On page 252. Pasuk Daled. It's right in the middle of the page, on page 252. Vayomer Yosef Elachav. Gishuna Elai Vayigoshu. Approach me. Vayomer Ani Yosef Achichem Shemachartem Uchim. I'm Yosef who you sold to Egypt. Take a look at Rashi. Left column of Rashi, third line. Gishuna Elai. Does everybody see that? If you find it, please show the person next to you. 252, left column, third line. Gishuna, Yosef says, approach me. Ra osam nisogim lochar. Yosef saw his brothers are backing away. They were nervous. Amar achshav achai nichlamim. My brothers are back. Karalem b'roshon tachanunim. He called them in a soft, gentle tone. Vehera lahem shehu mohol. He showed them that he's circumcised. I mean, it's a bit uncouth, right? To show me that's how you identify yourself. So the commentaries say, obviously he didn't do that. What did he do? He said, look, the entire country is circumcised. Ask around whose idea it was. That's how you show that you're circumcised. Ask around where all the Egyptians are circumcised, where'd they get the idea from? Ask around. You'll see that the idea came from me. That's the way to identify that he's circumcised. That's what the Mefarshim say. It could be there's a literal level also. It could be the literal level, but on a more what do you call it? We call a more a refined level. That's what the Mefarshim say. Okay, so now the famine it becomes intense, and everybody's coming to Yosef. Okay, now watch this, Mayor. You're going to love this. Top of page 232. Let me ask you a question, gentlemen. How many years was the decree for the Jews to be in Egypt, to Avram Avinu? 400 years. How many years were they actually there? 210. Why how did it get cut down? Why did it get cut down?
From Avram.
It was because there's quality and there's quantity. right? The quantity was supposed to be 400 years. The quality of the labor, it was such intense labor that the 400 years was packed into 210 years. Okay? That's what we know, that they were there 210 years, even though the decree was 400. Now watch this. Vayar Yaakov ki yesh shever b'Mitzrayim. Yaakov sees that there are provisions in Egypt. Vayomer Levanov lama tisro. He says to his sons, different interpretations. One of them is, why are you standing around here where I see you? You should be going down to Egypt. You should be going down to Egypt. Okay? Vayomer hine shamati ki yesh shever b'Mitzrayim. Ridu shama v'shivru lana misham v'nichya v'lana maz. Go down there and get us provisions and we'll live. We won't die. Third line to the top. What's the numerical value of the word ridu? Ridu. 3 lines from the top. Ridu shama. Go down there. Ridu. Second word on the line. Ridu. What's the numerical value of ridu? 210. 210. Go down to Mitzrayim for how many years? 210. How do you get to 210? So now look at what he says. Look at the line before it. Shamati ki yesh shever b'Mitzrayim. Now what does the word shever mean besides provision? What else does it mean? Lishbor in Hebrew means what? Break. To break. What's the numerical value of the word Mitzrayim? Mem is 40. Drop the base. Mitzrayim. Mem is 40. Tzadik is what? 90 is 130. Resh is 200. 330, 340, 380. Right? Break Mitzrayim in half. Break Mitzrayim. Break 380 in half. What do you get? 190. Take away 190 from 400. What do you get? 210. Yesh shever b'Mitzrayim. Yaakov is saying, I see that in the future, the 400 years in Egypt is going to be broken. Shever b'Mitzrayim. Break Mitzrayim in half, 190. Take away 190 from 400, what are you left with? Ridu, the very next word. Ridu shama, 210. Right? That's what you get from 400, you get to 210. Shever is break. You break Mitzrayim. Break the numerical value of Mitzrayim is 380. Break that in half, you get 190. So there's going to be a breaking in Egypt. I mean, in the future, there's going to be a breaking of those 400 years in Egypt. Like, pretty cute, isn't it? There you go. It's a Chassam Sofer. It's pretty cute. It wasn't me. Right? It's pretty cute. They're going to break Egypt. You're going to get a redo. Okay. So he's going to send them down to Egypt. Now, take a look at what happens. Here we have the first confrontation. They go down to Egypt, and Yosef is in charge. And here we go on Pasuk Vav. Yosef hu hashalit ala oretz hu hamashbir l'chol am haaretz. Vayavo achei Yosef vayishtachalu apayim artzi. Yosef's brothers bow down. Yosef's brothers bow down to him. Now there are different opinions. Well, there's a fulfillment of the dream. According to some, there's a fulfillment of the dream. According to others, no. The Ramban says the dream hasn't been fulfilled. Because the dream was that all the brothers will be bowing down to him and Binyamin isn't here. That's why he sends them back to get Binyamin to bow down to him. I need a fulfillment of the dream, which is a question I had for years. Why? Why do you need to bring about a fulfillment of the dream? He had a dream, they're going to bow down to you. So now everything he does is going to be in order to manipulate things to get a fulfillment of those dreams. Why? What does Yosef need a fulfillment of those dreams for? So the answer is that if the dream is then actively fulfilled, which means that there is a physical submission to Yosef. That means the dream indicates that they're going to submit to him. And now they bring it about and they physically submit to him. What is that going to do for the Jewish people? Why do you need that? What's going to happen? Well, they're going to be in Egypt for 210 years. Yosef is going to be reigning for 80 years. That's a long reign, by the way. He's from 30 to 110. He's a king. He's a viceroy of Egypt. He's running the country. The Jewish people need, at the beginning of their stay in Egypt, they need something that is going to instill in them the values that they came with. Yosef's going to supervise the entire people. He's supervising. But the only way you could supervise people is they submit. The only way you could give a Gemara shir is if guys come on time. Right? Hey, look at that. No, any similarities to real life are purely coincidental. People got to submit. The only way you can control your kids is if they submit to your authority. How you get them to submit to your authority is a tricky thing. It doesn't mean that you have to come, you don't rule kids with an iron fist. Getting them to submit is a tricky thing. But in order to be able to have any influence, they have to first submit. That's why they need a fulfillment of the dreams. Once they fulfill the dreams, they submit to Yosef. Plus, Yosef could show them. He creates a situation. I'm just jumping ahead just to give you the background. I'm in total control of you. I could have done anything I wanted to, and I let you off the hook. That shows you there's no resentment. I mean, honestly, Chaim, if your brothers sold you, which I imagine at some point probably crossed their minds, but if your brothers had sold you, you might harbor some resentment there, right? Depending on who they sold you to and where they sold you and how long they sold you for. You might harbor some resentment. The fact that it turned out good, that wasn't their plan. Yosef needs to show them that he doesn't harbor any resentment. Now here's one of my favorite, what do you call it? Here's one of my favorite, I love this shot. Vayar Yosef esecha vayakirim. Yosef saw his brothers and he recognized them. Vayisnaker alehem. He made himself strange to them. Vayadaber itam koshos. He speaks harshly. Vayomer alehem me'ayin bosem. Where'd you come from? Vayomer me'eretz Canaan lish baruch. We come from the land of Canaan to get food. Vayakir Yosef esecha ve'im lo ikiru. Yosef recognized his brothers. They didn't recognize him. Why didn't they recognize him? Well, first of all, how did he recognize them? There they are, and especially when all 10 of them are together, you can basically start putting people together. Why didn't they recognize him? And the question is particularly strong because we learned earlier on that Yosef looked exactly like Yaakov Avinu. And it says, it says in the beginning of Vayeshev, what was in the beginning of last week's Parsha, Ela told us Yaakov Yosef. What the pasuk said? The pasuk said, Ela told us Yaakov Yosef. And Rashi points out one thing that he looked exactly like Yaakov Avinu. So why didn't they recognize him? What?
Because they had their faces.
Eventually they picked themselves up though. They're talking to the guy. There's going to be a whole conversation over here. Where'd you guys come from? We come from the land of Canaan. They're sitting upright. What do you say?
Oh, he was dressed in clothes of royalty.
Okay, but what happened to his face?
He shaved.
He shaved. Good. The truth of the matter is that the Chazal say the opposite. Chazal say when they left him, he didn't have a beard, and now he does. So the beard is covered. But Yaakov has a beard. We can assume Yaakov has a beard. Yosef looks exactly like Yaakov. So why don't they recognize him? There are 10 of them looking at him. They don't recognize the guy. So there are about 4 different answers for this. Answer number 1 is, he looked like Yaakov when Yaakov was 39 years old. That's how old Yosef is, a spitting image of Yaakov. If you would have seen a picture of Yaakov at 39 years old, you'd say, hey, this is Yaakov. But they never saw Yaakov at 39 years old. Yaakov didn't get married till he was 77, 84. So they never saw it. And at this point, Yaakov Avinu is, how old is Yaakov? He's 109. So you can't expect Yaakov to look like Yosef at this point. Yosef doesn't look like, they never saw Yaakov. So that's why I didn't reckon number 1. Number 2, this happened to me yesterday. I went to Dav Mincha across the street. As I walked in, there's a guy there. He was in the middle of washing for Mincha, and I looked, and he said hello to me, and I said hello. And I'm racking my brains, where do I know this guy from? Because he's out of context. Completely out of context. I recognized him, I didn't know who he was, till he said something, and I put together that we happen to teach in the same school. We happen to see each other. I'm on the way in, he's on the way in, I'm on the way out. I happen to know the guy very, very soon. But he's out of context over here. Once in a while it's happened to me with Israeli bus drivers. I'm like you ride the bus on a regular day. You see the same bus drivers over and over. Also, one day I'm in a popcorn store, buying Garanim for Shabbos or something. And I see the guy says hello to me. And I'm looking like, who the heck is this guy? I know him from somewhere. He's completely out of context. Number 1. Number 3, the last thing you're expecting is that your brother who you sold, you're just not expecting your brother who you sold is going to end up the Egyptian emperor. So there are commentaries that say he also was wearing exactly. Again, your name is Jake. What Jake is correct. He's wearing Egyptian headdress, which comes out to about here. He's got a beard, so all they're really seeing is this. And then one of the commentators said, do you know it's prohibited to look at the face of a Russia? You're not allowed to look at the face of a Russia. They assumed that the Egyptian emperor is a Russia, so they didn't look at him at all. So they never saw him. So Yosef is what he calls but he recognizes them. He sees them and he recognizes them. He can tell exactly which one, who's who over here. So my brother just showed me a picture. Of guys that he graduated high school with. They had a class, they had a reunion here in Israel. Most of these guys I haven't seen in a good 40 years. And he showed me the picture. They were at a restaurant. He showed me a picture. And I started looking at these guys. It took a while, but I was able to pick them out. I knew his friends. I was able to pick them out. There was one guy who I actually worked with. Oh, this is the one guy that I knew best of all. I had no idea who he was. He showed me that. He said, do you know who this is? I said, that I have no idea. Him, I don't remember. And he told me the guy's name. I actually worked with this guy. He was my boss on a summer program as a counselor. And I didn't recognize a completely different person. So they don't recognize Yosef. Now, look at this. Look at this. Last point for today, but I want to show you. Vayizkar Yosef es hachalomos asher chalam lahem. Yosef remembers the dreams. Doesn't say he remembers the pain they put him through. It says he remembers the dreams which he dreamt for them, lahem, for them, because the dreams are only going to be for their benefit. And look at his first thing he says. Vayomer aleim meragli matem, your spies. Liros es ervas haaretz basem. Now, the plain translation of ervas haaretz is you've come to see the vulnerability of the land. That's what spies do. They want to see where you're vulnerable. How does the article translate it? The land's nakedness. What does that mean? Okay, the nakedness means where it's not covered, where it's vulnerable. That's the plain context. Listen to this. This is brilliant. The Ben Ish Chai says this. One of yours, Alan. The Ben Ish Chai. And it's unbelievable. He says like this. First of all, lirvos is ervas haaretz. The word erva means nakedness, right? Gilui erva. Gilui arayos and erva. It's the same root. So, number one, this is an implication. This is a categorization of Egypt in general. Egypt is ervas haaretz. It is the nakedness of the earth. The word aretz, by the way, is phonetically the exact same thing as earth. Right? Just say that a th and a th are very similar sounds, right? Aretz, arith, right? Arith, aretz is the earth. You've come to see the nakedness of the earth, which implies Egypt itself is called the nakedness of the earth, because that's what I told you earlier. It's a seat of immorality. But first thing he does is he accuses them of being spies. First thing, he remembers the dreams, which means I got to bring about the dreams. Oh, you're spies. What does he do by accusing them of being spies? What does he accomplish? Why does he accuse them of being spies? What does he accomplish?
Puts them on the defensive.
Exactly. And therefore what? What won't they do? What does it stop them from doing now? They can't go snooping around. Because as soon as they start asking questions, remember, they want to find Yosef. As soon as they start asking questions, he could call them back and say, I'd say you're spies. Why are you asking so many questions? You came to buy wheat. Why are you all of a sudden asking questions about this, that, the other? So he exactly puts them on the defensive. They got to be very cautious here. It's brilliant. First thing is, you're spies. First thing I do is accuse you of selling drugs. If I accuse you of selling drugs, then one thing's for sure, you're not going to be selling drugs. Maybe you'll use them, but you won't be selling them. At least not where I can see you. Whenever you want to put a stop to it, immediately, okay, well, we're going out for the evening. I know you're going to beat up your sister. Now, me and I are going out for the evening. I'm sure you're going to beat up your sister, and you're going to get it when you come home. I guarantee he's not going to beat up his sister. He'll beat up his brother, not his sister. Right? You put him on the defensive. So the what do you call it? The first thing he does, he accuses him saying, now listen to this. The Ben Ish Chai says, there's a medrash. The medrash says that the brothers, they went looking for Yosef. They came into Egypt. They go, now where are you going to find a good-looking 17-year-old? Where do you think you're going to find? That's who they sold. They sold a handsome 17-year-old. and they send him to a spy. They sell him They sell him to a country of immorality. Where do you think you're going to find him? The first thing you do is to head for the red light district. Either he's amusing himself there, or he's being used for the amusement of others. But the first thing they do is they go to the red light district. So it's well known that spies, whenever spies would come to a country, one of the first things they did is they went to the prostitutes. Why? Because government officials, high-ranking people, were usually hanging out there. And so these ladies always had information, and spies would go to them to find out what information have you got. It's well known in France and other places during the wars, they were the ones who they expected. When Yeshua sent the spies into the land, where did they go to? They go to a woman called Rachav Hazona. Why did they go to her? Because you could assume that the government officials are there, and they're probably spelling, these ladies know stuff that nobody knows. So Yosef, the Medrash says that they went to the red light district. They were looking for him. So now they come to the king, and he says to them, you're spies. Liros eservas haaretz. The proof is because you went to see the nakedness of the land. You went to the most lewd, immoral places. Obviously, you're spies trying to pump for information. That's what Yosef's accusation is. That's why the word irvas haaretz has a double meaning. A double meaning is the very fact that that's where we found you. That's where you went. That shows you're spies, because that's where spies go to get information. So they're immediately turned. No. We came to get food. Kulanu b'nei ish echad nachnu. We're all sons of one man. We're brothers. The last thing in the world you do is send a group of 10 people who are brothers as spies. That's not great strategy. Send a bunch of guys who look alike in a group as spies. We were never spies. We're not spies. We're not spies. And what do you call it? And now Yosef's got them on the defensive. Exactly what Avi said. He's got them where he wants them. He's got them on the defensive, and now he's going to be able to pull his whole scheme. Okay, we'll hold over here.